welcome to Radiant Mom Rising. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and uplifted. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, and in each episode, we dive into amazing stories, insights, and conversations that help moms like you chase your dreams and embrace your worth. Let's rise and shine together. Hey, Radiant Souls, and welcome back to another episode of Radiant Mom Rising. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, and today's conversation is going to touch some deep and important places in your heart, especially if you've ever had to untangle yourself from beliefs or systems that kept you small, silent, or ashamed. Joining me today is the incredible Bre Hamilton, a religious trauma coach, mother, and brave truth teller. Bre opens up about her experience growing up in a cult-like religious environment, how she found her way to healing, and how she now walks alongside others as they reclaim their power and rewrite their stories. We're diving into healing from spiritual abuse, the damage of purity culture, the beauty of reparenting, and what it really looks like to live a life aligned with your truest self. Let's get into it. It's raw, real, and it's so needed. I am so happy to be here with today's guest. Bre, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks so much, Mary. I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Definitely feeling the spring vibes starting to show up. So
Right?
yay!
Yes, I know. I'm so excited about that too.
Yeah, my energy just feels so much better once the winter's over. So
I completely agree. I'm 100% with you. And how about let's get started. If you will, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
yeah, for sure. So I'm Bre Hamilton, and I'm a religious trauma coach. So what that really means is that I work with folks who have experienced toxic religion or religious trauma. Typically, the people that I work with have already probably gone through some therapy. Some of that work has already been done, and now they're ready to kind of do more coaching. Sometimes they might do coaching alongside therapy even, but they're not like newly out of the church because there's just like a lot of stuff to unpack sometimes. And with coaching, we want to look more towards how do we heal forward, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's typically what I do. I put a lot of focus on community. So I have like a group program that I do that's a longer 6-month group program. And then I have like a membership as well that has like a little bit, it's kind of on the lighter side of support. But I really believe strongly that a big thing that a lot of people experience when they leave a toxic religion is, they really lose their community, and it can feel very ungrounding. And so to be able to kind of heal in community and to kind of heal that and learn to trust not only yourself but other people as you're doing that can be a really big part of the healing journey.
I can totally see that. And I'd love to hear more. Like, tell us a little bit about your own experience and your story that led you to help people in this way.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot I could share, obviously. Like I could probably talk for hours about my story, but to kind of nutshell it, my parents joined a church that, I came to later really see that it was a cult when I was in grade 2. So I was pretty young. And then, we started out kind of as a house church in the pastor's house. And then eventually they got rented a space in like a Christian school gym, and that's where we were. I believe they're still there to this day. And so the church that we were a part of was sort of like a a branch of the main church that had been founded in Waverly, New York by Pastor Brian Bailey. And he was really considered by everybody else in the church to be a prophet. So pretty much whatever he said was the truth. So like obviously they believe in the Bible, but then anything that kind of like they definitely believed in extra biblical stuff. So somebody could prophesy about something or see something. Pastor Bailey was said to have gone to like died and gone to heaven and hell a couple times and come back. So he had all of this extra stuff to share with everybody, and he wrote a lot of books. He believed that babies go to hell. That was a pretty shocking revelation even for me while I was still part of the church. But his theory about it was that predestination. So God knew what these babies would have done if they had been able to live their whole life. And so the ones who would have fallen away from, the true faith were in hell. So that was actually pretty shocking for me. I was like an older teenager when that book came out. And I mean, I always felt like a black sheep. I really never felt like I fit in. I didn't, submit the way the other girls did to my dad. And just, it was very difficult for me. There's a lot of othering in cult spaces. And it was very uncomfortable for me because I didn't get it. Like everyone else seemed to get like, why being gay was bad, and I just like did not get it. So yeah, so I grew up in that from the time I was in grade 2, and I kind of like went in and out as an adult. Like I left home at 20, which was a pretty contentious experience, chaotic experience the day I left home. They kind of tried to do an intervention because they I was trying to secretly leave because I knew that they were all crazy, but they got word of it. They figured out that I was leaving, and so they got the pastor's daughter, who I was close with at the time, to come over and, try and talk me out of it. But I had made up my mind, and I knew I needed to like steel myself. And like I wasn't a teenager, right? Like I was 20 years old. Most kids my age would have left home, but that's just not what we did in our church. You were supposed to like live at home until you got married. And so, yeah, so I left home at 20. And then as I like kind of tried to figure out the world that I had never been prepared for, I had a kid, and I got married, and then we had another kid. And it was a really contentious relationship as well. So I was kind of in and out with my parents and the church, and it was very much like a toxic relationship. Like I just couldn't seem to quite get out fully. And then in 2011-ish, when I had met my partner at the time and was like just early being pregnant with my third child, I was like, I had just gotten to the point where I was like, I knew that if I let them know I was permanently leaving, I wasn't coming back to the church, I would lose everyone, right? Like I just knew that that would happen, but I had gotten to the point where I was like, I'm not willing to, abandon myself in order for other people to be happy with the life I'm living. Like I'm the one who has to live it. So at that time I said like, I was married, as I said, to my first partner, to my older two kids' biological father. And, he said the same thing. He's like, if you do this, like your family's not gonna support you. And it was just like, I know. I'm more well aware of that than you are. And so I just said like, I'm not staying married to this guy. Like this is a horrible relationship, and I haven't been happy the entire time. And on top of that, like I'm done with church. Like I'm done. And I think at that time I believed that like I would never go back to church. But then later on I did. I went back to a different church, and I always tell people that this was actually, it was essential for me to go back to a different church as a part of my deconstruction, which sounds funny that like I had to go to church to deconstruct from it fully. But I needed the experience of a healthy church, a pastor who, didn't have an agenda for me, who was just like there to, love and support his church members.
Yeah.
And I also became very close with someone who's the worship leader of that church now. And we still stay in contact. We're still very good friends. And it's same thing. Like she's just very much like what Jesus was like in the Bible, right? And so then, yeah, through the pandemic and everything being shut down, I was still kind of tuning into church a bit, but I was just starting to see a lot of things that didn't really make sense for me anymore. And, just it was like this almost like slow deconstruction, but like also fast at the same time, because I was kind of deconstructing unintentionally, unconsciously for many years. And then, when my oldest was 12 and something kind of happened with her, and it kind of like snapped me out of where I had been stuck in. And, I realized like I'd been depressed and I needed to take control of my life. Like, what kind of mom did I want to be? How did I want to show up in life? Like, what did I want to do with my life, And it was like that moment. And I think that was like just before, like end of 2019-ish. So like we
Wow.
actually moved back closer to our families, and then like a week later everything shut down.
Wow.
And it was the best thing for me. There was so much space for me to connect with myself, to get more in connection with nature and ground myself more. I started to learn a lot of, things about myself and about other belief systems and other ways that people kind of saw the world. And that was really good for me to kind of get that well-rounded look at what else is there outside of this belief system. So yeah, that's the I guess the Coles notes
Yes,
of
though.
it. Yeah.
I mean, what a journey. What a journey. And there's so many people that still, you know, trapped within that. And it's amazing to see how it's like within you from the get-go. You weren't a sheep. You just knew something wasn't right. And I believe that's God. Like, it's like you were just more in tune to that intuition of like being mindful and logic. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but thankfully, because I know that's not, I can't imagine. I mean, this is one thing I've learned and I've seen through like, because, I like to understand too, like how the brain works and how people can even get into these cults or into these like ways
Yeah.
or, even become murderers like they do. It's just like interesting to me, like to understand how, like, and it's like, it really does when a child is exposed to things, like they're so influential. Like they don't
Yeah.
know, they just trust what they're told. They're not really there yet to make those logical decisions for themselves. But when you've been taught something for so long and it's been this way, it's normalized for
Mhm.
you. Of course,
Yeah.
it's easy to grow
Absolutely.
up and believe that this is all that there is. I mean, it makes complete sense. And that's a very scary thing to think about, that there's so many people out there who are being brainwashed and manipulated in ways that, cause them to live their life kind of for others. Like you said, I love that you were at a point where you finally recognize like you matter too. You're a person, this is your life, and you get to you should be allowed to decide how you want to live it, especially when it comes to your children. You want to role model that for them and to ensure that they too have that freedom to like find and figure out life for them for yourself. But you definitely are somebody I see who's amazing and great to help others in this area. And I love the fact that you also challenge yourself and realize that, testing the waters out with other churches and really allowing yourself to have that experience is actually a good thing because it does broaden your, you know, your knowledge. It broadens your
Yeah.
experiences. It really helps you to learn more about yourself and about others. To tell us a little bit about like how it's like working with people, how do you help them, and some of the things that you've seen that's been a big challenge for them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of issues that I would say have kind of cropped up with people that I've worked with, but they can kind of all be, boiled down to a handful of things that are pretty common across the board for people who are who grew up in like toxic Christianity. There's obviously other religions that can be toxic, by the way,
Yeah.
but because that's not my experience, I don't really speak to that. So there might be somebody who, comes out of some of those other religions that can speak more to that. So when I'm talking about like toxic religion, I'm more speaking about like fundamentalist Christianity, kind of that in that vein. And so a lot of the things that come up, so this, especially for women, but this also affects men who grew up in toxic religion, but purity culture is a really big one. People have, repressed their sexuality. They have not allowed themselves to like be in tune with themselves, to know themselves on that level because it's always been so villainized and so criminalized by, the churches that they came out of. And especially for women, we kind of were told that there was like this one path for us. We needed to, submit to our dads, and then when somebody gave us permission to get married to someone else, then we submit to that person, right? And so there's not a lot of freedom, like you were just saying. There's really not a lot of freedom for women within those spaces, right? And so to kind of come out and start to work on some of those things where, you're allowed to express yourself, whether that's expressing yourself sexually or it's expressing yourself with what your beliefs are. Everything else is so like taboo when you're growing up in that, like even doing things like yoga, right?
Yeah.
It's so taboo, but that can be something that's very grounding and connecting for somebody who has kind of left that religion behind. And so a lot of those things come up. It's like, right? It's like, how do I tap into these like rituals that might be really fulfilling for me, that might connect me to like what spirituality I do want to follow now, what that looks like for me, and we might all come to a unique version of spirituality. And that's a big thing that I talk about because we've kind of we kind of shut everything down
Yeah.
when we leave the church, and we're like never doing that again.
Yeah.
But as you start to heal and grow, you might find that you recognize in yourself like, oh, I am still a spiritual person, like I still want to connect with some, even if it's yourself that you're connecting with, right? Is like repairing that connection to your intuition can be the most important thing that you do in healing, because everything is connected to that, right? Making decisions, knowing what's right for you, what's wrong for you, all comes from your own intuition, your own inner wisdom. And that's something that gets shut off very early in fundamentalist Christianity.
Yeah.
And yeah, so those are big things. And then, like I said earlier, community is another really big one, that when people leave toxic religion and they lose their community, they've also lost their sense of purpose at the same time, right?
I
So
can do that.
when you're in the Christian world, everything is black and white. This is good, this is bad, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. Like when you think of the main message that Christians believe in, it's, go out and preach the gospel to all the nations. So that's where missionaries really have come from, right? And when you extricate yourself from that religion, suddenly, why are you here now? That's a big thing, and that's very unfounding. There's like no foundation under you. Don't even understand what your purpose is anymore. And on top of that, you've lost all of the community that you may have grown up with your whole life. Some people obviously are people who joined as an adult and then and got out as an adult, and so like it might not be everyone they've ever known, but a lot of times when that happens, they've kind of been isolated from the people they knew before, and those relationships might have been harmed. And then now they've lost the community that they built up in this cult, right? And so that it's very isolating. You've lost your sense of purpose, you don't have community. Like there's so much that happens kind of all at once. It's like the rug just gets pulled out from underneath you. And so that's a big thing that we work on in coaching, right? Is like
Yeah.
not only how to trust yourself, but how do you trust other people again?
Right.
Because the thing that you crave the most is also the thing that hurt you the most when leaving that toxic religion, right?
It is. It truly is. I mean, it's like in so many parts of our lives when you make decisions, it's so easy, like even starting a business. I mean, for me, that was a big eye opener to realizing like who really supported me and cared about me. And certain family and friend members like made it obvious that they were not supportive of it. And it was really hurtful because it's like you say, when you make that life-changing decision for yourself and you start losing people who, it's easy to you know, live in that fear and that
Hmm.
isolation, but not, but what we
Yeah.
don't realize though, people, is that like, oh my gosh, the doors of like opportunities that open and the people that you get connected to next when you do make that decision, it's so much better. It's so rewarding if you allow yourself to just get through that part that's a little tough. And that's why people like Bre, like you're so amazing to create these communities and these places and show up for these people and show them that, hey, you don't have to go through this alone. You got this. You can do this. But hey, there's nothing wrong with asking for help and asking for support and going out there and seeking other people who are going through similar paths that you guys can connect and really be there and support each other and not feel so alone through this. And because it's like it's hard enough already making this decision, but then when you have to go through it like that, oh, it's most people end up going back or
Yeah.
they just stop. And so our goal as coaches is to really support you through that because I love how, like you say, therapy is very important as far as the healing process goes for sure. But what I love about coaching is how we really focus on the now and the future. Like, who do you want to be and who are you now? And like, let's
Yeah.
see what you can do, what kind of step you can take now to get you one step closer to that. And that's
Yeah.
powerful because that's the thing about what so many people don't realize is the power we have to change the outcome of our lives, like, and in every decision we make. Hey, Mama, just a quick break from the show. I want to take a moment to speak directly to you. If you've been feeling stuck in survival mode, juggling all the things, quietly wondering if your dreams are ever going to happen, I want you to know this. You're not alone, and it doesn't have to stay this way. Imagine what's possible when you surround yourself with women who get it, who cheer you on, offer real connection, and remind you that your goals matter too. That's exactly what happened at our Mama Means Business networking event. These aren't just meetings, they're meaningful moments of alignment, opportunity, and support. Our next one is coming up on Thursday, July 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'd love for you to be part of it. And if you're feeling like you need deeper, more personalized support to finally shift the patterns, get clear, and create the life you're meant to live, this is your invitation. I've opened just a few spots for my one-on-one Radiant Mom Breakthrough coaching calls. This is where we dig into your heart, your purpose, and your next step together with loving guidance and a path that's designed just for you. This can be the moment everything changes. You don't have to hustle or prove anything. Your desire to grow is enough. The support is here, the space is open, and your next chapter is waiting. Head on over to marydibblecoaching.com to explore both the Mama Means Business networking event and book your free breakthrough call if it feels aligned. All right, now back to the episode. Let's keep rising, Mama. So tell us, like, if somebody were listening right now and might not really be aware even, like, what are some signs you can kind of put out there that helps people to start kind of opening their eyes to the fact that they might themselves be in a toxic religious situation or even just a toxic relationship of some sort?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of the red flags are going to be like if there's some sort of authoritative power structure, right? Where if you were to speak out an opinion, you might be putting yourself in danger of repercussions, right? Because really, if there is that hierarchical structure and you're not safe to voice questions,
Yeah.
if you're not, if you can't even ask questions, that's very culty to me. A lot of times cults have somebody that is considered to be a prophet. So obviously that was consistent for my own experience. And I know many other people have experienced that too. There's definitely going to be othering of anybody outside of that religious circle. So, for me growing up, it was like even other churches that technically believed in a lot of the same things. Still, we weren't really allowed to like fraternize with other youth groups or other churches because we might get like led astray from like the Zion, I guess, theology
Yeah.
in a way, like because it was very different. It was very like
Yeah.
extreme.
Yeah.
And then yeah, purity culture is a big one. I mean, I think purity culture is also like has kind of become more mainstream, so it's in a lot of churches now, not just like fundamentalist churches. But yeah, definitely if, there's a lot of emphasis put on women not being stumbling blocks for men, and there's no responsibility being taken, especially for people in leadership who have done something wrong. Yeah, all of those and probably so many more like red flags. I think I actually read a post about this, so I will send you the link for that. You can put it in the show notes.
Absolutely. Yeah, please do. Like I said, this is such a powerful, topic conversation because there's so many people out here who are, to me, it's like if you ever feel trapped, unhappy, like that is such a sign that you're not aligned with where you're supposed to go. And it's not easy. I get it. I know it's so scary. We live in our comfort zones. Our subconscious minds wants us to stay safe. So it will put out all the what ifs of all the negativity of like what but you never stop and think about the what ifs on the positive side, like, well, what if my life could be amazing? What if I could become abundant? What if this is successful? What if this is great? What if this is the best decision I could ever make for myself? And I hope to inspire anyone listening who may know somebody or who may be in a position themselves of in a similar situation, that you understand that, like, yeah, I know it's not easy, but isn't what you're dealing with right now also not easy? And so maybe that's the thing. It's like there's a reason you're feeling this calling, you're feeling this push or this pull to do something about it. So if you need help, don't be afraid to ask for it. I can't imagine how it's probably been a little challenging for you to find people who's really willing to get the help.
Yeah, it can be
Yeah.
because it's one of those things like when you're coaching around religious trauma, first of all, it's not like business coaching, right?
Yeah.
So it's not this like logical, tangible thing where I can be like, hey, if you work with me, you're going to get this outcome that's going to make you money in your business, right?
Yeah.
It is a very personal thing. It
Yes.
is deep work. People do have to be ready for it. And that's why I always suggest like for people to have, maybe seen a therapist first, just because even if it's alongside coaching, if you're doing
Yeah.
both at the same time, right? Because stuff is going to come up in
Yeah.
coaching. Trauma is going to surface. And so, I do a lot of training constantly to just continue to be trauma informed, because when those things come up, because they will, how can I hold space for them? I don't want to just shove somebody off and say, hey, you need to go see a therapist about that. Because in the moment, that thing has come up, and I need to make sure I'm a safe space for that person until our session ends, and that they feel empowered then to go and get that support that they need, that extra support, right?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it can be hard for people to come to the place of like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to work on this stuff, because like opening those boxes, that's a personal choice. You could choose to never open the boxes, right? You could choose to just kind of keep going through life and, kind of surviving it. But the flip side of that is that there is an opportunity for you to live your life from a place of thriving instead of
Yeah.
surviving, right?
Yes.
Like there's nothing wrong, and I'm never going to bring any judgment to anybody who chooses not to open those boxes. I'm not somebody who could ever have not opened the boxes. Like you said at the beginning, like you're so curious about like the why of things, right? And I recently started a YouTube channel where I look at like true crime from the lens of how did toxic religion lead to this crime happening? And I'm the same way. It's like
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people that just cannot watch true crime and it's like too much for them. But for me, it's not like the weird gory bits that
Yeah.
that keep me up at night. It's like what happened with this person
Yeah.
that took them from what seems like a normal person, a normal mom, a normal parent, to doing something like this, so extreme on the other side, right? And how did toxic religion play a role in that? So I think it's like I could never have just kept the boxes closed for myself, because I needed to unpack those and I needed to understand where I had been, where I was now, where I wanted to go. Like you
Yeah.
said, kind of shifting those goalposts when you come out of religion like that, you've always known where you're going, right? It's like the
Yeah.
ultimate end goal here is live your life so that you go to heaven at the end, right?
Yeah.
Now you're shifting those goalposts because that's no longer the goal. But it's so helpful for you to create that goal so you know where you're headed and you can create space. Like, what is it that you need in the here and now to move towards that goal?
Yeah.
Not having one is it's going to be hard for you to figure out like what do you need to do in the here and now, because you're not moving towards anything specific, right? So that's
Exactly.
something that can be
Yes.
so helpful with coaching.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I mean, and we need people like you because like with the whole talk recently about chaos with the trials and Charles Manson and stuff and things that being exposed about that, I thought was really interesting. And I love what someone was saying, how thank God for people like him because I don't have the time to investigate and to go through all that. But it's like people like that who are willing to have that curiosity and put in the time that help
Yeah,
kind of bring these ideologies and these things together of like exposing what some of these people are doing and how they got to that point of becoming this certain way. And it's like it's kind of crazy the power of influence and manipulation. And
right.
it's like, that's part of what the cults do. They really do manipulate and influence these people to believe a certain way. And yeah, it's a real thing. And there's a lot of people out there who are ready to move forward from that, ready to get away
Absolutely.
from that. And so I'm so thankful for people like you who are there to support them through that journey because someone who's survived, you didn't just survive it, girl, you're thriving from it. And I always I'm curious too. I'd love to hear a little bit about your children if you want to share, if you don't mind to share, like how this has affected them. How's their experience been like it? I can imagine it's been a little different for some of them where you were in and out of, but if you don't mind to shed a little light on that, like what's this been like for them, even with the coaching?
Absolutely, yeah. So my oldest is now almost 18, which is wild. My youngest is 2. So there's quite the older 3 are kind of like 17, 15, and 12 right now. It's kind of 3 teenagers basically, and then a toddler. So it's a very interesting parenting like doing parenting, kind of starting over again with our youngest. And a lot of stuff as I was healing kind of came up, right? Around things I had done as a parent. And I think this is the big thing is we see a lot of rupture of relationships with adult children now who have deconstructed from the faith, and parents who are unwilling to acknowledge the harm that they caused. A lot of the time, you hear this like, well, we were doing our best, just forgive us, right? But parents need to acknowledge that, yes, while they were doing their best and they were walking in like whatever light that they had in that current time of life, what they did was also harmful. And if parents could just acknowledge that both things can be true, it would create a lot of space for forgiveness and for conversations. And that's really what I needed to do when I was initially healing, was like start to create some conversations with my 12, 13, 14-year old, and the other kids too, and create space to like apologize. Like this was something that happened. I didn't know any better, but that was really not good for you. And so in creating space for that, there's definitely been a shift in, especially with my oldest, just like the relationship that we had and now the relationship that we have now, right? Like my kids, one of the big things as I was healing was I want my kids to be able to be who they are fully, completely. This is their safe space to be that, right? We have freedom of speech in our house, that kind of thing. And I didn't have that growing up, right? And so, sometimes you might regret it because they will just say how they are feeling and it might not feel good. But it's really created a lot of space for my kids to feel safe coming to me and talking to me about stuff, even talking to me about how something impacted them without they're not being judgmental.
Yeah.
They're just sharing their experience. And for me to be able to be open to kind of hear that experience has been really good. I definitely know that my oldest experienced some religious trauma that I didn't even realize she was going to have, because by the time like I fully left and we moved and they weren't like getting picked up for church anymore by my parents, I think she was 5, 6. So in my mind, it was like, she was still pretty young, but a lot of stuff really stuck with her, just things about like God's always watching you in your room. Like, like God's listening and watching every single thing that you do, right? Like some
Like he's
weird,
got,
creepy Santa,
yeah, like he's got time for that. No, I'm just kidding.
right?
Right. Yeah, I know.
So
Bless her heart. Bless her
yeah.
heart. Oh.
So it was, yeah. So she definitely had some stuff that she's worked through. And another thing that was really important to me was making sure my kids had access to therapy, right? Because like
Yeah.
as if I'm healing and I need therapy, like there's going to be things that, just from growing up, starting to grow up in the church and then being out and just this crazy world that we live in, and then the pandemic caused a lot of, mental health issues for kids too. So my kids are all in therapy. They all have access to therapy. And, my oldest is now at the point where she felt like she was just talking about school with a therapist. So she's kind of like unpacked a lot of stuff. And so that's good. So it's definitely been interesting. And obviously now switching to doing the parenting journey over again with the toddler, right? It's just so obvious to me how much of a different place I'm in. The capacity I have is different. The room for their emotions is different. Just like it's just a different experience. And, sometimes it can be hard to like not feel bad as you notice those things that are so right there for you now
Yeah.
that you didn't have with your other kids. It can be hard to like recognize that, but I think just creating space not only to have those conversations with your kids and acknowledge the harm you did, but forgiving yourself for, not knowing better, and that you can give yourself that room to kind of notice that now that you know better, you are doing better. You are doing
Yes.
things differently, right? And
Yes.
that's really all we can do.
It is. And it's something important to recognize too, because you're still showing your children, that you can change. People can change, that
Absolutely.
you can choose to be different and show up differently. And I love what you said about the responsibility of it, just acknowledging that sometimes we can do harm, because that was something
Mhm.
with my mom. Like I was so grateful for her, was that she always gave us the space to talk and share, but she'll even acknowledge like she has her, she wishes she knew what she knew now, kind of thing. And I get it. I was like, but
Yeah,
I could tell her, I was like, you know, you only knew what you knew, but when she was willing and able to change, she did. And she, you know, and she's always been a great mom, but she just was always one of those who tried to be our friend more than a mom. And
right.
that kind of backfired on her because we, you know, especially with me, I was such a rebel at that age, but it's because I had a lot of insecurities and stuff, and I just fell in the wrong crowds. But
Yeah.
again, it's like I said, you're still teaching, you're still showing your kids, right, in this moment now that you know you can thrive, you can change things around, you can change the outcome, and that's giving them permission internally, whether they realize it or not, that they'll get to do that too for themselves, no matter what happens on their journey. And I feel you too. It is kind of feels like a you kind of get a do-over as I
Yeah.
too have, you know, because my son's about to be 17 next month, and then I have a 3 and a 5 year old. So it's like
Yeah.
having that chance to, you know, and you know, my firstborn, his father, his biological father, didn't acknowledge his existence. So he grew up for a portion of his life without a dad until
Yeah.
my husband today came in his life when he was 7. So I'm very grateful for. And you know, it's just it's one of those things that, like you say, it's awesome to see how much we grow and how much we change over time. And where I wish I had, you know, you're right, where there's some things you're like, you know, I kind of wish I hadn't been this way or whatever. It is what it is. I mean, you can't change the past, but you can learn from it, you can grow from it. And the most
Mhm.
important thing is to just start really acknowledging how far we have come on these journeys, no matter how hard they've been for some of us. So I
Yeah.
think it's wonderful. Seriously, Brie, I'm so happy for you that you were able to get out of that, to really create a life that you love and that's healthier for not just you but your family. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, and by the way, like you ended up like kind of sounds like me, like you met your soulmate later in life. How did
Yeah.
that come? How did that come about for you? Because
So I actually knew Graham when I was a teenager. We both worked at a fast food restaurant together, and I had kind of gone through this like I left home for like 6 days, I was staying with him, and I went back. I wasn't even 18 at the time, so I went back and there was like still a lot of stuff that was all, I was like as a kid, I was kind of brainwashed, right? So yeah, there was a lot of like fear about like staying out of the home and not going back. So I went back at that time, but I'd never really forgot about him. I always thought about him, even with the other relationships I had. And, if I would drive through the town that we had like met in, I, drive by the building where he had lived at the time. Stuff. I just always thought about him and, wondered what his life got up to and stuff like that. So anyway, when my second like major relationship was ending, and it had kind of been this like long drawn out thing where like we really knew a couple years before it fully ended. And so things had kind of like finally ended, and I just like was thinking about him again. I looked him up on Facebook to see, what he had gotten up to, and looked like he was pretty good guy still. So I just reached out on Facebook, and we just had some conversations back and forth about like where life had taken us, and kind of just, one thing led to another. So yeah, we just celebrated 6 years together, and have a toddler now also. So we moved across the country a few years ago to come to Nova Scotia and live by the ocean. So that's been quite an adventure too.
yeah, but so that's amazing. See, and I love that right there to see how that can unfold in our lives for it. You know, when you start making that decision to get out there and change things and just allow things to, you know, unfold how, you know, I me and my husband all the time are talking about how like how did we not know each other? If we had known each other, we would have gotten along. Oh my gosh. But then we're like, you know what? We probably wouldn't have been ready for each other. And that's okay because you
Absolutely.
do, you
Yeah.
really do. You don't see it, and that's the thing that's so hard. I get it. It's like you don't see the outcome of what is going to happen because you chose this way. Like you chose to end a relationship, or you chose to quit that job, or you chose to start something. Like it's so hard because we don't see that end result of like what's it's going to come. And that fear alone keeps so many people from even trying, from even doing. And it's sad because
Absolutely.
man, the wonderful things that can come from just being brave and courageous and just doing it anyways, regardless of how messy or crazy it seems or how hard it is in the beginning,
Yeah.
always pays off because, like I said, I never expected to finally meet my, you know, we met on Match.com, believe it or not.
Love it.
And I was like one of those people too who was like always make fun of those dating apps and like, oh, those are such jokes and blah, blah. And don't get me wrong, I had like a not fun experience like the first 6 months of being on
Yeah.
it either. But then he happened to pop up a week, you know, before my thing ended. And the rest is history. And now we were about to celebrate 6 years of marriage, 10 years of being together this year. He adopted my firstborn. And it's like, man, it's like the things that are possible when we just put ourselves out there and allow ourselves to receive. I really believe in the manifestation and the abundance, and that, when we really get aligned with who we are and learn to come from a place of that frequency and that energy, and just allow ourselves to be open to the possibilities and to the blessings, like it's already done. We're just on a path to get there. That's all. It's just a matter of when. But so
Yeah.
many of us just hold ourselves back. We don't allow ourselves to get there because of the fears and stuff. And that's something I'm really an advocate of trying to help people to shift that mindset, to shift that way of
Yeah.
taking chances, and like, this is, because this is it. This is the life we get. So let's make the best of it, right? And let's not wait
Absolutely.
till later in life when it's like you have all this regret of like, oh, I wish I'd done this sooner. Like, let's get
Right.
started now, right? So tell
Yeah.
if there's someone listening who might know somebody or have some, or know somebody or themselves might want to work with someone like you. Tell us what's the best place to find you.
Yeah, so if you come over on Instagram at Soulfully Brie, all my links are there in the bio. But if you also want to, I mean, you can do this through Instagram too. If you come over to my Substack from there, that's where I have my paid, it's $33 a month for my paid membership. So we do monthly coaching, and there is access to paid subscriber only chat. So you get access to like 24/7 access. So kind of having not only a coach in your pocket, but other people who are on the same journey as you, right? Who are, trying to create that sense of community again, to learn to trust themselves, to create that purpose, that goal that they want to move towards now that they have kind of gotten some clarity on what doesn't work for them. How do they now move forward? What are they moving towards? And what are the steps that they're going to take to get there? So that's what I have over on Substack. I will be later this year doing my 6-month group coaching program again. So that would be the membership will be a great space to kind of get a feel for like, what is coaching like with Bre, and is this a good fit for me? And then, because that's kind of like a small version of what you would get in the 6-month program. So yeah, and if you don't have the funds for anything right now, you can just I put something out on Substack every week. I am working towards having every other week having a YouTube video come out, and Instagram, obviously I'm always in the stories. So if you just want to kind of consume some of my content for now and get what you can get from that, and get a feel for me as a person, as a coach, then that's great too.
Oh, that's wonderful, Brie. I think especially the membership stuff. Like, that's so powerful when you have that consistent connection with people and
Yeah.
consistency of like those things are so powerful and affordable. Like, it's a great option of like really being part of a community and a place that you can always turn to at any time for that support that you need, because you just never know. And like I said, especially the consistency of it, that is such an important thing that so many of us like struggle with. So I highly, highly recommend anyone listening, go check her out. Definitely go follow her. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. I always open the floor. Is there any final piece of advice that you would like to share with mamas today?
Yeah, I think your audience is mostly moms, right? So I think a big thing for us moms, as we're healing and we're growing, and we're learning about like what doesn't work for us, and kind of moving into a different way of showing up, not just for ourselves but for our kids, right? A lot of times when that's the case, you're parenting and you're also reparenting at the same time, and that is really tough work. So I just first want to just acknowledge, if that is what you are doing, that is a really big step. That it's huge to do that at the same time. But I also believe that, I've seen people say things before like, you have to heal before having kids. Like, you should heal before having kids. But the thing is that like life is messy, and humans are messy. And what I believe is like, you can be a hot mess. You can be reparenting yourself while parenting your kids, and creating the space for them to see what is possible as they grow up. Even if your kids are half grown or like full grown, like there's no time that's too late to shift that, the way that you interact with your kids, the way you show up for them, the way that you open communication lines with your kids, right? And so, yeah, if you're someone that's listening that feels like, is it really time for me to heal because like I already had my kids and is it too late? Like it's not too late. You can always shift that. I know people who have not shifted it until their kids are already grown and have kids of their own and they've repaired relationships with their adult kids, right? So I think if you're open to creating that space and allowing yourself to acknowledge, the harm that you did and create some change, even if your kids are already adults, to repair those relationships, like there's no time that's too late to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I commend you for doing so and just to help others to realize that for themselves because,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
really an important life skill that you're teaching your kids that you know what, we're humans, we make mistakes, but we can take accountability and responsibility and shift things and, still love one another, move through the challenging times because we don't know what our kids are going to face. And
Yeah.
so I mean, think about what we've faced, and it's important to show them that they can be resilient, that they can work through it and find their way no matter what. And yeah, I think that's so, so amazing. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story and for doing all that you do and being part of this show with us today.
Thanks so much for creating the space, Mary.
You're so welcome. Thank you. I just admire Bree so much and grateful she helps in the way she does. Here are the key takeaways from today's episode. You are not alone in your experience. Community is essential when healing from religious trauma. You can heal from the emotional and psychological wounds caused by toxic belief systems. You have the right to question teachings that left you feeling small, ashamed, or unworthy. You are allowed to redefine faith, spirituality, and truth in a way that feels safe and aligned for you. You can break free from the harmful effects of purity culture and reclaim your body, voice, and choices. You don't have to parent the way you were parented. You can reparent yourself and raise your kids with honesty, openness, and love. You are strong enough to face your past and transform your pain into purpose. You deserve support. Healing is heavy, and you don't have to carry it alone. You get to choose freedom, joy, and peace as your new normal. You can build a life rooted in authenticity and emotional safety for yourself and for the next generation. To learn more about Bre, be sure to visit her at brehamilton.com and connect with her today. And before you go, Mama, just a quick reminder that the 100th episode giveaway is still going strong. One lucky listener is going to win a $100 Amazon gift card, and it might as well be you, right? All you need to do is follow, subscribe to the show on your favorite app, leave a 5-star rating and review, and then let us know you did by commenting done on the main giveaway post at Mary D Coaching. And hey, each little share or tag gets you an extra entry, so don't be shy. You have until July 31st to enter. Now, if your heart's been craving deeper connection and fresh momentum, don't miss this month's Mama Means Business Networking event happening today at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's not too late to sign up. It's not just about business. It's about building community, creating opportunity, and filling your cup in a space where you belong. And if you've been listening week after week and thinking, this is exactly what I need, I just don't know where to start, then your moment is now. Head on over to marydibblecoaching.com and book your free Radiant Mom Breakthrough Call. This isn't a sales pitch. It's a sacred space where we get to be real about where you are and what's been holding you back and how we can create a clear path to the life you know you're meant for. Studies show that people don't take action because of logic. They take action when they feel understood, valued, and guided. That's exactly what you'll experience on this call: a safe space to be seen, a personalized plan to move forward, and support that aligns with your values, vision, and rhythm. No pressure, just truth, love, and clarity. So whether it's the giveaway, the networking, or finally saying yes to your breakthrough, I'm here cheering you on. You're not just meant to survive this season, you're meant to shine in it. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep believing in all you desire. Much love.